For 8 years, this kid kept bringing his hand up to his ear. Every single time the pain hit, he'd squeeze his eyes shut and just sit there, quiet, not able to tell anyone what was going on, because Raphael never heard a thing, not a sound, not a word, nothing. His dad, a man named Eduardo Montero, was the kind of guy money never made happy. Billionaire, private jet, massive estate in Connecticut, but none of it mattered because his only son was born deaf and nobody, not one doctor, not one specialist, could figure it out. Eduardo took that boy everywhere. Hospitals in the States, clinics in Switzerland, research centers in Japan, spent millions. And the answer was always the same.
Your son has congenital deafness, Mr. Montero. There's nothing we can do.
Just accept it. But how does a father accept something like that? Especially a father who already lost everything. Because Eduardo's wife, Luciana, died during childbirth. Complications, hemorrhage. The doctors tried, but it wasn't enough. Eduardo held her hand while the light faded from her eyes. She was trying to say something right at the end. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, just like their son. After that day, Eduardo was never the same. The guilt ate him alive. If he'd picked a different hospital, if he'd pushed harder, if he'd been paying closer attention, maybe Luciana would still be here. Maybe Raphael would be different. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He threw money at it. Millions and millions. The best specialists on the planet. Plane tickets that cost more than most people make in a whole year. And every doctor, every professor from some fancy university said the exact same thing. Irreversible. Accept it. What Eduardo didn't know is that the answer wasn't going to come from any hospital. The answer was going to come from the woman he just hired to mop his floors. Her name was Claudia, and she was about to change everything. Claudia Santos showed up on a Tuesday, morning in October. Sky was gray, that heavy kind of gray, you know? One of those days where even the air feels tired. She stood in front of the gate of the Montero estate, gripping her bag with both hands, heart pounding. The truth is, Claudia was desperate. Back in Newark, her grandmother was lying in a nursing home bed. The bills were stacking up, 3 months behind. If she didn't pay, they'd transfer Grandma Margaret to a state facility, the kind of place where nobody holds your hand, nobody remembers your name. Claudia couldn't let that happen. Her grandmother raised her. When her parents died in a car wreck, Claudia was 11. It was Grandma Margaret who hugged her, who took care of her, who prayed over her when life felt impossible. That woman deserved better than a cold room full of strangers. So Claudia took the job, maid at a billionaire's mansion. She didn't care about the fancy address. She just needed the paycheck. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, met her at the door. Stern face, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who notices everything and forgives nothing.
You're Claudia? Yes, ma'am. You'll clean. You'll stay quiet. You'll mind your own business. Mr. Montero doesn't like disruptions, especially around his son.
Claudia nodded.
I understand. Do you? Because the last girl who worked here thought she could get involved, tried to help the boy, didn't last a week.
Claudia swallowed hard.
I'm just here to work, ma'am.
The housekeeper looked at her for a long moment, then gave a short nod.
Good. Follow me.
As they walked through the mansion, Claudia kept her eyes down, but it was impossible not to notice. The silence in that place was different. It wasn't the good kind, the restful kind. It was heavy, like something had died in there, and nobody bothered to bury it. The other servants moved around without speaking, without smiling. Their steps were careful, deliberate. Nobody made a sound. And then she saw him, a small boy, sitting on the marble staircase, lining up toy cars in a perfect row. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge anyone. Shoulders hunched, movements careful and precise. But what caught Claudia's attention was something else. The way he kept reaching up to touch his right ear. Lightly, almost like a habit, and that little wince that crossed his face every single time. Claudia's chest tightened. She'd seen that before. She didn't say anything, just kept walking. But something inside her whispered, "Pay attention." Days went by. Claudia mopped floors, wiped windows, folded linens, did everything Mrs. Patterson told her. Head down, no complaints. But she couldn't stop watching Raphael. Every morning, same thing. The boy would go to the sunroom, sit there alone, surrounded by model airplanes and puzzle pieces. His little world was small, contained, safe. Nobody bothered him there. The other servants avoided him, not out of meanness, out of fear. Like his silence was something they might catch. Some of them whispered that the boy was cursed, that losing his mother at birth had taken his hearing along with her. Superstition, obviously, but Claudia saw something different. She saw a kid who was terribly, desperately lonely. A boy who sat by windows and pressed his little hand against the glass, watching the world move on without him. She noticed how he'd look at his dad whenever Eduardo walked past without stopping, and how those small shoulders would drop just a little bit lower. She saw how he kept touching his ear over and over. wincing every time, and nobody noticed. Or maybe they'd stopped noticing a long time ago. One afternoon, Claudia was dusting the hallway near the sunroom when she spotted Raphael struggling with a model airplane wing. His small fingers couldn't get the piece to fit. Frustration all over his face. She shouldn't get involved. Mrs. Patterson's warning was echoing in her head, but before she could stop herself, Claudia crouched down and gently took the little wing, clicked it into place, soft and easy. Raphael looked up at her. For a second, they just stared at each other, and then it happened. The tiniest smile, just one corner of his mouth lifting up. Almost nothing, but it was everything. Claudia's heart cracked right down the middle. She smiled back, gave him a little wave. He waved back. That night, lying in bed, Claudia couldn't stop thinking about that wave. Such a small thing, but it meant the whole world. Next morning, she left something on the stairs where Raphael always sat. A little origami bird, simple, made from scrap paper she found in the kitchen. She didn't stick around to see if he'd take it. But the following day, the bird was gone, and in its place was a note. 2 words in shaky handwriting. "Thank you." Claudia pressed that note against her chest and closed her eyes, whispered softly,
Lord, let me help this child. Show me how.
She didn't know it yet, but God was already answering, and the answer was going to cost her everything she had. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Claudia and Raphael built their own language. Small things, secret things. She'd leave him candies wrapped in gold foil. He'd leave her drawings of airplanes. She learned his signs, not the formal ones his tutors taught, but the personal ones he made up himself. Tapping his chest twice meant he was happy. Pointing at the sky meant he was thinking about stars. Pressing both palms together meant he felt safe, and slowly he started doing that last sign around her. Safe. Claudia held on to that like treasure, but not everyone was happy about it. One evening, Mrs. Patterson cornered her in the kitchen.
I've seen you with the boy.
Claudia's stomach dropped.
Ma'am, I warned you. Mr. Montero has rules. Staff doesn't get close to Raphael. I'm not trying to cause trouble. He's just so lonely. That's not your concern.
Mrs. Patterson stepped closer.
You're here to clean, not to mother that child, not to fix what can't be fixed.
Claudia bit her tongue. Fix what can't be fixed. That's what everybody said. Even here, even inside the house where the boy lived, they'd all given up.
If Mr. Montero finds out you've been interfering, you're gone. No reference, no second chance.
Mrs. Patterson's eyes were cold.
Think about that.
She walked away. The sound of her heels clicking against the floor felt like a countdown. That night, Claudia sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She thought about her grandmother, the bills, the paycheck she needed so badly. She thought about Raphael, his lonely eyes, his pain. She thought about that dark thing she'd seen in his ear. Fix what can't be fixed. But what if it could be fixed? What if everybody was wrong? Claudia grabbed her Bible and held it tight.
Lord, I don't know what to do. I can't lose this job, but I can't ignore what I'm seeing.
She waited in the silence. No answer came, just the weight of a decision she wasn't ready to make. Outside her window, the moon hung low and heavy. Inside her heart, a war was starting, between what she needed to survive and what she knew was right. She didn't know it yet, but that war was about to end, because the next morning, everything was going to change. The next morning came cold and quiet. Claudia was sweeping the hallway when she heard it. A dull thud, then nothing, then another sound, like a muffled cry. Her heart jumped. She followed the sound to the garden door, and there was Raphael, sitting on the stone bench, his little body hunched over, both hands pressed tight against his right ear, face twisted, tears pouring down his cheek, but no sound coming from his mouth. He was crying in complete silence. Claudia dropped the broom and ran, fell to her knees in front of him, hands shaking.
Rafa, look at me.
He opened his eyes, red, wet, full of pain. She signed carefully.
Your ear?
He nodded. More tears fell. Claudia felt her chest being crushed. She signed again, slowly.
Can I look? I'll be careful. I promise.
He hesitated. Fear flashed across his face. But then he leaned forward and signed, trust. This child, who'd been poked and prodded by doctors his entire life, he trusted her. Claudia swallowed hard. She tilted his head gently toward the morning light and looked. There it was, deep inside the ear canal, something dark, dense, glistening like wet stone, bigger than before. Clearer. How did every doctor miss this? How did every scan overlook it? Claudia's mind raced back to Marcus, her cousin, the blockage that kept him deaf for 6 years, the simple procedure that changed his life. Her hands were trembling. She signed.
Rafa, there's something in your ear, something that shouldn't be there.
His eyes went wide.
We need to tell your father.
Panic exploded across his face. His hands moved fast, desperate. No doctors, please. They hurt, always hurt, never. Help. Claudia's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She understood. 8 years of specialists, 8 years of procedures, 8 years of pain with zero relief. He'd learned that help meant suffering. She took his small hands in hers, looked straight into his eyes.
I would never hurt you.
she whispered.
Never.
He stared at her, slowly, his breathing calmed, but the fear didn't leave his eyes. Claudia sat with him until the tears dried, until the trembling stopped. Then she walked back inside, mind racing. She knew what she'd seen. She knew what it meant. But what could she do? Tell Eduardo? He'd call more specialists, the same ones who missed it for years. Do nothing? Stand there and watch this child suffer in silence. That night, Claudia didn't sleep. She lay there staring at the ceiling, her grandmother's voice echoing. God doesn't always send help in a fancy package, baby girl. Sometimes he sends it through folks who got nothing but willing hands. Claudia closed her eyes. Willing hands she had, but did she have the courage? 3 days went by. Claudia couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could barely think straight. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it. That dark mass clogging everything up, and Raphael's face, the pain, the silent tears. On the third night, she sat on the edge of her bed, Bible open in her lap, but the words blurred. All she could see was Marcus, her cousin, deaf for 6 years, written off by every doctor, until somebody finally actually looked. One procedure, one moment of real attention, and his world exploded into sound. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She knew what was in Raphael's ear. She knew, but who was she? A maid, no degree, no training, no business touching that boy. If she was wrong, if she hurt him, she'd go to prison. If she was right but Eduardo found out she acted without permission, she'd lose everything. Her job, her income, her grandmother's care.
Lord, what do you want from me?
Silence, just the ticking of the clock. She thought about her brother, Daniel, dead at 14. He'd been sick for months, complaining about pain, but they couldn't afford doctors. Claudia watched him fade, watched him struggle to breathe, watched him try to speak words that wouldn't come. He died in her arms, silent, just like Raphael's world. That day, she made a promise, promised God, never again. She'd never stand by while a child suffered. But this was different. This wasn't her brother. This was a billionaire's son, and she was nobody. Claudia closed the Bible, stood up, walked to the window. The moon was huge outside, pouring silver light across the gardens. Somewhere in this mansion, a little boy was sleeping with pain in his ear and silence in his world. And she was the only one who'd noticed, the only one who saw.
God, she breathed. I'm scared. I'm so scared. But if this is what you're asking.
Her voice trailed off. She remembered her grandmother's words. The Lord doesn't call the equipped child. He equips the called. Claudia wiped her eyes, made a decision. Tomorrow, if Raphael showed pain again, she'd act. She'd trust what God showed her, even if it cost her everything. She climbed into bed, heart pounding. Sleep wouldn't come. But peace did. A strange, heavy kind of peace. The kind that shows up when you've decided to step off the cliff and just trust that God's gonna catch you. Tomorrow was coming, and with it, the moment that would change everything. The next evening came way too fast. Eduardo was away on business. The house was quiet, emptier than usual. Claudia was folding towels in the hallway when she heard it. A thud. Her heart stopped. She ran. Raphael was on the hallway floor, curled up like a ball, both hands pressed to his ear, face twisted in agony, tears streaming down, silent tears. Claudia dropped to her knees beside him.
I'm here, baby. I'm here.
She cradled his head gently, tilting it toward the lamplight. The dark mass was right there, visible now, swollen, pressing against the ear canal. Her hands were shaking. This was it, the moment. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the sterilized tweezers she'd taken from the first aid kit 3 days ago, just in case. Her breathing came in short bursts.
Lord, guide my hands, please.
Raphael looked up at her, eyes wide, scared, but trusting. She signed with one hand.
I won't hurt you, I promise.
He nodded, slowly. Claudia steadied herself, took a deep breath, and gently, carefully, slid the tweezers into his ear canal. Her hand shook. She could feel it. The mass. Dense. Sticky. She hooked it gently. Pulled. Resistance. Her heart hammering in her chest. She pulled again. Slow. Careful. And then, release. Something slid free. It landed in her palm. Dark. Biological. Years of buildup that had stolen this child's hearing. Claudia stared at it. Her stomach turned. But before she could react, Raphael gasped. A real gasp. Audible. Loud. His hand flew to his ear. His eyes went wide. Wider than she'd ever seen them. He sat up suddenly, looking around the hallway like he'd never seen it before. Everything sharp and new and overwhelming. Then he pointed at the grandfather clock on the wall. The pendulum swinging back and forth. The clock that had been ticking his entire life. The clock he'd never once heard. His mouth opened. A sound came out. Rough. Broken. Unpracticed, but real. Tick, he whispered. Claudia's tears fell.
Yes, baby. That's the clock. You can hear it.
Raphael's whole body trembled. He touched his own throat, felt the vibration of his voice for the first time. His eyes filled with wonder and fear and something else. Hope. His mouth opened again. One word, first real word he'd ever spoken. Claudia sobbed. She pulled him close, held him tight as he shook, as sounds poured into his world for the first time in 8 years.
You can hear.
She whispered into his hair.
Thank you, Jesus. You can hear.
Raphael clung to her, and then footsteps, heavy, fast, coming down the hallway. Claudia looked up. Eduardo Montero stood in the doorway, face white as death, eyes locked on his son on the floor, and on the blood on Claudia's hands.
What have you done?
Eduardo's voice shook the walls. He rushed forward, pushed Claudia aside, grabbed Raphael by the shoulders.
What did she do to you?
Raphael flinched at the sound, so loud, so sharp, but then his mouth opened. Dad, I can hear you. Eduardo froze. His entire body went rigid.
What?
Raphael reached up and touched his father's face. Your voice, he whispered. Is that your voice? Eduardo's legs gave out, but before the moment could breathe, before he could process what was happening, his eyes landed on Claudia's hands. The blood, the tweezers, the dark mass in her palm. Terror swallowed the wonder.
Security, now.
2 guards appeared instantly.
Get her away from my son.
Claudia's heart shattered.
Sir, please listen to me. I didn't hurt him. I helped him. Look.
She held out her palm, showing the blockage.
This was inside his ear. This is why he couldn't hear. I removed it.
You're not a doctor.
Eduardo roared.
You could have killed him.
The guards grabbed Claudia's arms. Raphael screamed. Actually screamed. A real scream. No! Don't take her! The sound of his son's voice, loud, desperate, real, stopped Eduardo cold. But the fear was too strong.
Take her to the security office. Call the police.
Claudia didn't resist. As they dragged her away, she looked back at Raphael.
It's gonna be okay.
She mouthed.
You're gonna be okay.
Raphael cried. Loud, messy sobs. The first sounds of grief he'd ever made in his life. At the hospital, doctors swarmed around Raphael. Tests, scans, examinations. Eduardo paced the corridor, mind spinning. His son was speaking, hearing, responding to sounds. It was impossible. A nurse approached him.
Mr. Montero, the doctor needs to speak with you. It's urgent.
Eduardo followed her into a small office. Dr. Matthews sat behind the desk, face grim.
Mr. Montero, I don't know how to tell you this.
Just say it.
The doctor slid a folder across the desk.
This is your son's scan from 3 years ago.
Eduardo opened it. There, circled in red, was a notation.
Dense obstruction identified in right ear canal. Immediate removal recommended.
Eduardo's blood turned to ice.
Someone saw this?
Dr. Matthews nodded slowly.
It appears so, but there's no follow-up, no procedure scheduled. Your account was flagged for ongoing treatment protocol.
The words hit Eduardo like a freight train. Ongoing treatment protocol. They'd known. They'd seen the blockage and left it right there. Because his money was too good. Because his desperation was profitable. Because as long as he didn't get an answer, keep paying.
They kept my son deaf.
Eduardo whispered.
On purpose.
Dr. Matthews said nothing, but his silence said everything. Eduardo's hands trembled. All those years, all those millions, all those specialists shaking their heads and saying sorry. They'd lied, every single one of them. And the one person who actually told the truth, who actually helped, was sitting in his security office waiting to get arrested. Eduardo stood up.
Where are you going?
The doctor asked. Eduardo didn't answer. He had a maid to find and a lifetime of apologies to make. Claudia sat alone in the security office, hands folded, head bowed. She wasn't praying for herself. She was praying for Raphael, that his hearing would hold, that his father would understand, that the boy would finally know what it felt like to live in a world full of sound. The door opened. She looked up. Eduardo Montero stood there. But he wasn't the same man who'd had her dragged away an hour ago. His eyes were red. His face was wrecked. He looked like a man who'd just watched his whole world fall apart and come back together in the same breath.
Claudia.
Her name, spoken softly, almost with reverence. She stood up.
Mr. Montero, I can explain.
Don't.
He walked toward her slowly.
Don't explain. Don't apologize. Don't say a word.
He stopped right in front of her, and this billionaire, this man who controlled empires, who commanded boardrooms, who had the world at his feet. He fell to his knees.
Forgive me.
He whispered.
I'm so sorry.
Claudia's breath caught.
The doctors knew.
Eduardo said, voice cracking.
They saw the blockage years ago. They left it there because my money was too good to cure.
Tears ran down his face.
I trusted them, trusted credentials and degrees and expensive hospitals. I threw millions at my son's problem and never once actually stopped to look at him.
He looked up at her.
But you did. You saw him. You saw his pain. You paid attention when nobody else bothered.
Claudia's own tears fell.
I just loved him, sir. That's all.
Eduardo shook his head.
No, that's everything.
He stood up slowly.
I spent 8 years trying to buy a miracle, and God sent one through the woman I hired to clean my floors.
Claudia wiped her eyes.
God uses the willing, Mr. Montero. That's what my grandmother always said.
Eduardo nodded.
She was right.
They walked together to Raphael's hospital room. The boy was sitting on the bed, headphones on, listening to music for the very first time in his life. His face was pure wonder. When he saw them, he pulled off the headphones and ran straight to Claudia, threw his arms around her waist. "Thank you," he said. His voice was rough, unpracticed, beautiful. Claudia knelt down and held him tight.
You were always worth hearing, baby. Always.
Raphael pulled back and looked at his father. "Dad, I can hear your heart. It's beating fast." Eduardo dropped to his knees and pulled his son close. For the first time in 8 years, Raphael heard his father cry, and Claudia, standing quietly beside them, finally let herself breathe. God had answered her prayer, not with money, not with medicine, but with willing hands and a faithful heart. Sometimes that's all a miracle needs.